the workflow is going to be part of a ticket. And if you don't need if it is internal to you guys, anything that's happening on that ticket's going to be captured in this feed. So any of these workflow things we're talking about are going to be captured on your feed of that ticket, and that workflow is going to be part of that ticket. So whenever that chair touches that approval, whatever they put in here, it's going to be time stamped. Their notes are going to be part of the feed. And as you can imagine, this feed could get pretty lengthy over the life cycle of a ticket if it's being touched multiple times. But the good thing is that it's recording everything that's being touched on here. And if that suffices for like your internal notifications or in lieu or in place of a signature, then maybe we got something to work with here. So I just want to show you that real quick.
I'm just kind of thinking of it as like an audit log on like any type of computer. Like it'll tell you this user did this at this time. So as long as it's something internal,
and that's what
that we can say, hey, this department chair said approved on this date at this time. There's no way it could have been anyone else. They're the only one that has that login.
Okay.
When Marcus and I and Melody and James and Jonathan talked about the Adobe sign back in November, we didn't get a definitive answer there either. It was more like, I think some don't require and some do, and now we're just down to the nitty gritty on which ones meet that need. But Jonathan, what you said is exactly how we describe our feed in both the project side of the house and the ticket side. The feed is the indeed running audit trail of everything that was touched on that ticket. So just FYI. And in the meantime, I can continue to cobble together the form and the workflow.
But it's going to, even so, like on the Dean side, I mean, it's just going to have that same stamp. So there's going to be a record of what, hey, this Dean Johnson, he approved it, just like that little log you showed us. So, okay.
Yeah, that's obviously the home run, right? If that suffices for your internal needs, that's the easiest. So if we can make sure Vicky and or Melody or both can make that Wednesday the 6th, that will be key. Then we can get this one hopefully checked off if those signatures meet, and if not, then we'll have to brainstorm how do we extract it out in Adobe Sign and get it back in.
So there's no special would the deans need anything other than a client license, or would they need
they would only need a client license.
Okay.
The other thing that I would need to build out, I would need the names of these chairs and deans, but I don't need them today. You guys are all busy. I could put your guys' names in as the chairs and deans. It's going to fire the same way. It's just then we just swap out who those people are, and so
perfect. And I'll try and get those names in right when we get back, so that way once we do an internal test and it fires off to me and whoever else we do it to, then we could just swap the names out right there. So we'll have them already.
Right.
I'll plan for that.
And that's why, that sounds good. That sounds good. All right, let's take a look at the next one. This one is relatively straightforward, but I just want to go over it again just to make sure we're not missing anything. All right. This is about the most straightforward one that you guys have, and I think this one I'll also be able to have ready for us to walk through on the 6th.
Awesome.
So the thing about TeamDynamix is that a lot of these questions are, the form in TeamDynamix is vertical in nature, right? It's an attribute or a field, and then while you can have different types of fields, right? You can have a drop box, and a check box, and a custom field, so on and so forth. It's very vertical. So this form is going to be long because a lot of these fields have multiple pieces of data in it. So just an FYI there. So I'm not seeing anything in here through part B or part C, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of design considerations to make it more look like this. It's just going to be a lot of vertical custom attributes here, and that's not that big of a deal. Just an FYI.
Okay.
So this top part, pretty relatively easy. This piece here, to me, the residency easy as 1, 2, 3. My thought here is that this can be one of two things. It can be part of the WYSIWYG editor in the long description on this service. Another option is to have a link to it in one of the descriptions, but ultimately, where are they bringing those documents? And how would we replace that physical handoff of those documents?
I know that at the moment with residencies, it's being done through email from the student reaching out to our technicians.
We can have them attach any type of forms to these tickets, though, right, Mark?
Yes. Yep.
And it'll live within that ticket as forever. So I think that might be a better way to keep everything organized, to keep it all in one place. Is if you can make it so in order for them to move on to the next step, they must attach a document of some type.
Yeah, you could make that a required field. All right, now we get down to signatures again. Again, this declaration could, if that acknowledgement box suffices for this, that's our silver bullet, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if there's some sort of state or legal or federal requirement that it's got to be, does the Adobe sign piece need to be here, or is the acknowledgement attribute suffice? And then this stuff here would be for the admissions and records. We'll call them technicians, that they would be able to only see on their end and check these items off.
So, but I had seen, I don't know which department it was, but I had seen that they made the form to where it was kind of like done in pages, where they would kind of like press next and it would send them to the next page to keep filling out the form. And it was so much cleaner. I don't know if can the program do that?
In our designer, the only way to do something like that is specifically on a field. It's going to essentially, and again, I'll come back over here in my environment. It's essentially going to be creating these forms in your ticketing application, and the form itself is going to be, here's different forms. They're all going to be vertical in nature, and so I'll just use this one here just to show you. When you're designing it, there's no page breakdown.
All right.
It is very vertical in nature. What you can do is add a static content, which is kind of like separators. So you can add a heading or a horizontal rule and put like dashed lines to kind of break it up, so it's not all just field after field. But that said, it's still going to be vertical in nature. Okay. And it's not going to unfold page after page. It's going to all be on.
Okay.
Like if I preview this, it'll show you what it looks like for the ticketing requester, and it's going to look like this is a real shortened form, but they're going to be one on top of the other as we go down. And as we add fields, it's just going to be more of this. And it'll look, the TDNext is the ticket technician view. They have more fields available to them. And it's going to have, like we can see, this scrolling. This is all just on one continuous page, essentially.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like a change
Just
request.
All right.
Yeah, certainly. A new product idea, what we call
Yeah.
a product enhancement.
There you go.
That's not a bad idea though. Cascading pages as needed, right? So
Yeah, because
it could be genius.
I could see the point, because then it's like, it looks monotonous, right? And then you're just kind of breaking it up, and it's like, oh, I only have 2 more pages to go through, versus like, does this thing end? You know?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's look at the next form here. So this is somebody got a bad grade and they want to repeat the class process. But if if this form were available by the counselor, they are, they're going to need to, now we got to think about them as the ticket requester. They're going to fill this out. And then, both 1 and 2 is going to be them. So we might not need that trigger here because they would just be doing it themselves. So that might actually be simpler. So save the best for last. Just because there's a lot of words on here. So let me make this, let me make this a little bigger. All right. So this general information, all of this text can certainly be easily cut and paste over into the long description on that service, right? So I'm not worried about that.
Yes.
But it's just a lot of words in here, right? So this is non-resident tuition exemption.
But the recorders will still show through will still capture the information through this process, and the signature is separate, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. But so the big kicker on this one is that signature is needed in some form or fashion. So the other forms that we looked at all had some sort of signature needs. So like for this one, let's just say, again, is the signature need here a legal requirement, or can it be an acknowledgement in the TeamDynamix tool, like a checkbox acknowledgement, or do you need to have a signature?
Yeah, that one's also, that's also under perjury of law because it's a residency questionnaire. I think those are the only 2 that I can think of that require the signature, other than our newer credit for prior learning. But on the residency side, these are the 2, the AB 540 and the residency questionnaire.
All right. So we went through all 5 forms. My commitment to you guys is that I'm going to have a mock-up of the form and workflow for the first 2 forms we've been looking at in more detail: the verification of enrollment and the petition to challenge the prereq or co-req.
Awesome.
And then we'll be able to, on that date, we'll put it through its paces and show you what it's going to look like all the way through. And then we can get feedback on those 2 forms. But I think they'll be, by that date, they'll be like, 90% of the way there. And then we can polish those up while we're working on the other 3.
Perfect.